Naamah is a major character in the Old Testament of the Bible, and today we will explore his life and legacy. She was the daughter of King Hanan of the Ammonites and a princess of the Ammonites. The events of En's life are detailed in chapters 14:21, 31 in the Book of Kings. En became the wife of Solomon, the famous king of Israel, who was lauded for his intellect and wealth, according to the biblical tale. We have derived vital truths from Jewish tradition and the Bible to share in this film, despite the fact that En's life is shrouded in obscurity. In recognition of our hard work, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and give our videos a thumbs up when you watch them. Naamah had a life of luxury and fortune as the daughter of a king. The political and diplomatic ramifications of her marriage to Solomon, a powerful figure in Israel's history, were immense. The Israelites and the Ammonites' long-standing animosity meant that En's connections to the Ammonites had significant implications. The Ammonites had a long history of hostility against the Israelites and were thought of by many as enemies of the Israelites in biblical tradition. They were descended from Lot, who was Abraham's nephew. Some of the more traditional Israelites were worried that Solomon's marriage to En, a princess from Ammonite, would lead to a watering down of Israelite values and religion. Remembering Solomon's previous marriage to the daughter of a pharaoh, a lawful royal union, is essential before moving forward. Still, he gave in to the charms of a number of international ladies from different cultural backgrounds, including En. The main problem was that Solomon was irresponsible. He had an incredible amount of concubines and spouses over his reign. He had 700 brides descended from royal families and 300 concubines, as recorded in the first book of Kings 11:3. Having connections with women from other countries, including the Ammonites, Moabites, and Hittites, practitioners of different faiths with alien deities, seemed to reject Solomon's mother's frequent warnings about the dangers presented by these varied women. The complexity and influence of Solomon's marriage to Naamah were magnified by his profound love for her. He made choices that hurt himself and the kingdom of Israel because his love for Naamah was stronger than the cultural and political constraints of his day. Because of his undying devotion to Naamah, Solomon compromised the core theological beliefs of Judaism by allowing the worship of other gods and by embracing the practices of his beloved wife. An illuminating illustration of how a monarch who at first worshipped the real God may stray from his faith is Solomon. According to the Bible, Solomon worshipped the Lord God at the beginning of his reign, but he gave in to the pressures of his foreign wives, particularly En, and started to construct shrines for their gods. You may have noticed that Solomon wasn't the first monarch to disobey this law. It was a common practice. Even King David had many wives. Having a large number of spouses would cause the Israelite kings to stray from their spiritual path, according to a biblical warning in Deuteronomy 17:17. Solomon, who was intelligent in many ways, surprisingly departed from the straight and narrow because he ignored the counsel of the scriptures. Solomon gave prey to temptations, yet his famed knowledge and skill are worth praising. Two women, each claiming to be the mother of a certain kid, are at the center of one of the best-known anecdotes about his intellect. Solomon suggested dividing the kid in half as a middle ground, which upset one of the mothers and exposed her as the biological parent. From comprehending the natural world to penning the proverbs and songs that make up the Song of Solomon and the Book of Proverbs, his wisdom reached far and wide. Wisdom came to Solomon during his lifetime from a prophet called Ahijah, who foretold a future event that would alter Israel's trajectory. According to Ahijah's prophecy, one of the tribes of Israel would stay under the dominion of Solomon and his successors, but Jeroboam, who was Solomon's servant, would become king over 10 of them. According to Ahijah's prophecy, the kingdom of Israel was about to split apart. When Solomon heard the prophecy, he knew that Jeroboam was trying to depose him and end his rule. Solomon sought to murder Jeroboam out of extreme fear for his power and influence. The rising tensions within the kingdom of Israel were shown by this desperate deed. But Jeroboam returned as a pivotal role in the subsequent wars after Solomon's death and his son Rehoboam's accession to the kingdom. The prophecy of Ahijah was fulfilled, and a chain reaction ensued that caused the kingdom to be divided. Following his father's demise, Rehoboam became king. However, Rehoboam caved to the pressure from his counselors and did not ease the levy and labor that his father had put on the people. Jeroboam, who had already garnered public support for his opposition to Solomon, staged an uprising as a consequence of this decision. In a break from Rehoboam's reign, the 10 tribes of Israel to the north formed a kingdom under Jeroboam's leadership. Judah and Benjamin, the southern kingdom's tribes, were still ruled by Rehoboam and his successors. Political instability, war, and the ascent and fall of several dynasties and monarchs were hallmarks of the turbulent period that began with this divide in Israel's history. The biblical story does not make Naamah's involvement in these events clear. What Solomon did and how it affected the kingdom is the central theme of the story. Although Naamah's marriage to Solomon had diplomatic ramifications, her level of influence over his actions and the split of the kingdom that followed remains uncertain. According to Jewish tradition, Naamah had a bad impact on Solomon and was generally linked to bad things happening. It is often said that Solomon's defection from worshiping the one true God was caused in part by her Ammonite ancestry and foreign religious practices. Nevertheless, keep in mind that Naamah is not extensively mentioned in the Bible, thus any assumptions made about her personality or impact are purely conjectural. Finally, the political and theological significance of the marriage of the Ammonite princess Naamah to King Solomon cannot be overstated. The partition of the kingdom that followed Solomon's death was caused by his compromise of religion and adoption of the religious rituals of his foreign wives, especially Naamah. Although Naamah's precise part and impact on these events are still up for debate, her narrative highlights the gravity of betraying one's ideals and the perils of sacrificing one's beliefs.